All right. Good morning to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, also co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And thanks so much for joining us wherever you are watching from. As you will know, every single week we try to make a point to give you the goings on in entertainment of past things that have happened in the past week in our segment or our show known as This Week in Pop Culture that we like to do every single weekend. And of course, I'm not alone in talking about some of the said things that happened over the course of this week. So as always, I want to welcome my co-host, Mr. Spillman Trueheart, aka Spills. What's going on, man?
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? How are you going on another beautiful weekend? The fall has fallen. I've been looking for my new fall jackets. I've been like, I can feel that morning briskness. So I'm ready for another week. How about yourself?
Been doing good, man. I know we were talking about it off stage. Um, you know, just coming down off of being a little under the weather and not completely over it, so to speak. So, get drinking, as much of the teas and all of that,
A hot
stuff.
toddy. That's
Right,
how
right.
Spills
Yeah,
gets
yeah.
down. We pull a little bit.
Uh,
We make a concoction.
yeah, gotta make those tea concoctions with the honey and all of that stuff, and
Oh yeah.
all the citrus. But also, I always gotta get my spicy food in. That always helps, with
Oh
the,
yeah.
the
Oh yeah.
digestion. I don't know if that's the way for you guys out there, but I know for me that works. Eating a lot of spicy food that kind of helps open me up in terms of being congested. So, um, but with that out of the way, shall we dive into some of the things that have happened this week?
Oh, let's get it.
All right, cool. So we'll start off first in talking about Dexter Original Sin. If you guys, are not aware that they are doing a prequel series of, the original, of course, series that aired years ago with Dexter. And I know, a few years ago they did have a mini series following Dexter and the Son, but we do have this prequel series following, the early years of Dexter, in which we got a tease of, some of the characters that we, know and love, whether it's, Bautista or Dexter's sister, his father, and all of those said parties that have played a role in shaping him into the character that we know him to be. So Spielman, I don't remember if I think we've had this conversation and you mentioning that you did watch the original series if I remember correctly, but maybe you didn't watch it all the way through. Am I right about that?
I didn't watch it all the way through. I popped in with Dexter. I think with shows like Dexter, the premise will get me where it's like, why ain't they caught this guy? But then I'll like read Dateline and they'll be like, oh yeah, this guy was working with the police for 14 years before they caught him. And I'm like, oh, that's how they do it. They working with the people that are getting them. So that part works for me. I enjoyed the teaser. It's very like, ooh, we're going to see what Dexter's up to. I like the concept of the Dexter show, where they try to make murder altruistic, which is interesting. Sure, this person is murdering people, but they're bad people, so it's okay, I guess. That's interesting to me. I think that the whole premise of Dexter was good. Um, Obviously, this is another tire of a show. They're retreading old ideas into a new show to maximize those profits. I feel like the organization of Showtime needs something like this because I can't remember the last time Showtime had a show that anybody watched. I know that you probably can. I think maybe BMF might be it, but I don't think that BMF is even on Showtime. They need to
Well, I
do
was
some
gonna say, if
things.
memory serves, I'm trying to think back on some of our Showtime series, and I'll try to do some research on it. But I feel like Ray Donovan might have
Ray
been.
Donovan, and that's been 5 years because I
Yeah,
can't remember anybody talking about the Ray Donovan since the pandemic was
yeah.
started. So exactly, they need something. They need a hit because they about to go the way of the dinosaur. Um,
But no, no,
so I'm
no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I'm really interested to see what they do with the show. The guy looks like a young Dexter. You see right here next to me, ladies and gentlemen. He looks like a young Dexter.
Yes,
He,
this is Patrick Gibson.
yeah, yeah, he looks like a young version of the guy that played the original Dexter. Like if he was in college instead of a 35-year-old man like he was on the show, like the college version of him or the first year on the job him. That's pretty cool. I can get down with that. That's pretty cool. But they're just doing too much with these fake stuff and
I hear you.
everything. So
I hear
yeah.
you. So, in speaking, further to that, I myself, I watched the original show. It's one of my favorite shows actually, because I remember prior to this show, another movie that comes to mind that this film is kind of like in a very small sense is American Psycho, where you kind of have that dynamic of a character where you're seeing them interact with with their world, but a lot of what they're thinking is acting in contrast to what they're actually doing with those that they're interacting with in their world. So, in the same way that you have that dichotomy of a character who, on the surface appears to be, a regular Joe Schmo, but internally, has a lot more going on, a lot more darkness going on in terms of what their thought process is, what their value system is, what their desires are, all of that stuff is really, fascinating. In the same way that I feel like, unfortunately, however way people want to think of it, why I feel like investigation discovery is so popular, or any of those documentaries are so popular. Anything that deals with crime, people are really fascinated with, and when it deals, folks that are quote unquote they're serial killers. People are fascinated by why do people do these things that they do, but in talking about Dexter, as you were mentioning before, it provides a slight twist on it in that there is something that happens, and people that know Dexter know this. There is an inciting event that happens when he is a youngster that sets all of this in motion of why he is the way that he is. That births, quote unquote, this darkness, or this dark passenger, as he likes to, commonly, quote, what where a lot of these thoughts and these feelings and these actions that he executes oftentimes. And the fact that you have that shaped in such a way by one of someone who's close to him, realizing that he has you know these urges within him, and tries to shape it in such a way that it can be used towards other despicable people, is an interesting twist, even though at the end of the day, he still could very well be a serial killer. um but there is, I hate to say it, because of the fact that you have a lot of that inner dialogue that's happening over the course of a given scene while he's interacting with all these other characters. There is a small twisted kind of dark humor that happens there, because a lot of times, he's thinking one thing, and you see him executing other things. So pun intended or pun unintended. But other outside of that, I will say this, and you mentioned it. It's just interesting to see where we are now in terms of where a lot of our content is. In that we don't have a lot of things out there that is original. If we're looking at a lot of the things that people are watching these days, and don't get me wrong, like I like a lot of it, it is an adaptation of something, being placed into another medium. It is a sequel of something that has already existed. It is a prequel of something that has already existed. I could go down the line. If we're talking about Showtime now, we can, you know, go across to one of his contemporaries with HBO, right? I mean, we have House of the Dragon. We we,
Yeah.
we still have, Game of Thrones content on now, even though it's long, over. We're going back into the past, just like we're doing with this show. We're going back into the past of, a world that we're familiar with and that we know. Same goes for Walking Dead. Walking Dead is over, or so we think, but we have a lot of these spin-offs that are going to continue the story forward. So, like, people don't want to admit, we're basically still doing Walking Dead. We're just calling it something else into each of these small mini series or spin-offs. But at the end of the day, it really is. I think we could kind of admit it is just basically continuing Walking Dead, even though, some of the other storylines have concluded. Um, and then lastly, before we get into our next part, I'll say this, or I'll mention this, is I've talked about it here on the show before, and just the idea of prequels. And it's hard to do a prequel justice unless there's a significant amount of time between the original content and when this prequel is taking place, for there to be any sense of suspense, because a lot of these characters, if they're in the original series, we know nothing can happen to them because they need to survive the show to be able to be in the original series. So that is my like only gripe with things like this, where we have a prequel series, because many of the characters that are on this show, they're the main characters on the original show. They're just younger versions of those characters. And while it's cool, yeah, to be able to see how they were when they were younger and to see that maybe they were in a different part of their careers, if we're talking about a show like this that deals with, like, murder and mystery and all of that stuff and crime, it's not going to be, I don't know how they're going to be able to execute that sense of suspense, because that was very prevalent in the original series. How are you going to still recapture that if, a lot of the characters that you have are still here? So I don't know what your thoughts on it is.
I agree with those points. I think that, that's the problem with a retread. You'll never know when that tire is going to blow up. It's not a brand new tire. At least with brand new tires, you're like, all right, we got 30,000 miles at least on this. We don't know when it's going to go bad, but we at least know right now we bought them new. They're new. These are old ideas. So, it's a shot in the arm for Showtime, which is very important. But Showtime, I don't even know how Showtime's still in the air. I really don't. It's amazing that they still have a thing. I'm sure they have like a HBO Max or Disney Plus
They
type
do. They
streaming
do.
service,
They do. They
but
do.
I don't know anybody that has that service. I've been to people's houses. I've looked at their Roku menus. I don't be seeing that Showtime app on there, but that's not my business. I don't know how people live. Maybe it's bigger in different parts of the country than it is here, but I don't
And
know.
I mean, going back to what I was saying about a lot of those characters going back, and I'm going down the line here. Of course, Dexter is back because it's his show, but I mean, you have LaGuerta, who's a major character, coming back in the form of Christina Milian. And you have, as I said, you have Bautista coming back, as well. So you have, Deb, of course, coming back. So while there are some characters on here that are new, it's going to be interesting to see again how they execute it, because whoever is not a part of the original show, they're immediately going to be up for grabs as characters that are going to die. So because they are not seen in the
They're not
original
seeing in
series.
that next show. We know they're gonna
So
die.
so
Yeah.
they automatically by default, people are going to already have the assumption that they're going to die. And then on top of your characters that are original characters, no matter how dangerous a situation you're going to place them in, it's going to be hard to really feel any sense of suspense for them. So still excited to see it, because I enjoyed the original series. Many people will agree that like it had diminishing returns as we went through the last couple of seasons. I feel like it started to fall off after the because every single season had like a big bad, so to speak, or main. He had
Hmm.
individual criminals that he went after, but overall there was always like a big bad like serial killer that he was going after each season. And I feel like the last, and many people would agree with me, the last good season is probably like the Trinity Killer. So um, we'll see. We'll see if they're able to recapture it because as much as I liked New Blood, which was the initial prequel series, well, not the prequel series, I'm sorry, the mini series that followed the events of the ending of the first show, in which it was like him and his son. Then while there are parts of it that are good, many people will agree with me that it was. I feel like it was kind of uneven in terms of
Yeah.
the things that were great about it, and things that I didn't feel were as good. So, but switching gears, getting over to film, I'm gonna bring this over here. Let me see if I can get this up. So we have two things that we're going to talk about. McAvoy with the film Split, of course. See if we can get this up. Here we go. So talking about, as I said, James McAvoy with the film Split, and the fact that he wasn't the original choice when it came to that film that many of us I'm sure have seen, in terms of him playing many various uh, characters, and also talking about Ewan McGregor, who many people know as Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Star Wars series, and him getting his star on the Walk of Fame. So we can dive first, Spillman, into the info regarding James McAvoy. Um, Give me one sec. But yeah, we can hop in first and talk about James McAvoy, and him actually not being the initial choice for his character in Split. From the way he explains it, I guess it was nearly upon the start of shooting the film that Joaquin Phoenix was actually the original person playing the role that he's actually himself has become has become iconic for. He had dropped out, a couple of weeks prior to the production, and James McAvoy stepped in and took over the role. And as they say, the rest is history. So, what are your thoughts on, just that idea of, someone who is not the first choice really stepping in and, making the role their own, and actually making it one of their most iconic roles of their filmography?
Oh yeah, this is similar to Back to the Future. Did you know that Michael J. Fox was not supposed to be Marty McFly at first?
Yeah, yep. I know that story. They
Yeah, so
actually
this is very
got,
similar.
yeah, it was Eric Stoltz originally.
Yeah, and they went halfway through that movie, and then they realized this is not the right man for this movie, and they kicked
I
him
mean, you have a
out, and the
similar
rest is
situation
history.
with aliens though. Like a lot of people don't unless you like really deep dive into the trivia, uh that hold on, I think we lost your audio there for a second, Spills.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Okay,
What
cool.
were you
Yeah,
saying?
yeah. No, I was just saying, it's just interesting that we have a lot of cases like this, like you were saying, with Back to the Future. You said with Alien, you said that
Yeah,
Sigourney
it's
Weaver wasn't supposed to be Ripley.
well, no. So, what's his name? Michael Bain wasn't going to be Hicks originally. It was going to be
Okay, yeah,
James Remar. And
yeah.
similarly, in Back to the Future, he actually got around to shooting some of those scenes. And as a matter of fact, because it was so drastic of a change, some of his original footage is actually still in the film. So, like
Hmm.
when they're actually coming upon like the alien hive in that sequence, and you see like the back of Hicks is actually still James Remar. that because they still kept the footage and it wasn't distracting enough where they didn't have to like redo the take. Um, but yeah, like he ended up taking over the role. But I mean, there are a lot of instances like this that are really fascinating, where you have characters that, or should say, you have actors that take over roles and they weren't the original choice for the role, but for whatever reason, you call it fate, however way you wanna, however way your belief system is, but for whatever reason, the role is just meant for them to have, whether they're the second choice, whether they're the third choice. I mean, what we just had one of the uh what in back in July, one of the biggest releases we've ever had. What is it, six all time, in terms of box
Mm-hmm.
office, talking about Wolverine and Deadpool, or I should say
Mm-hmm.
Deadpool and Wolverine, whatever. Um, if we're talking about that, and the fact that Hugh Jackman was not the first choice, and we've talked about it on the show before, was not the first choice to play Wolverine, and just because of by virtue of a scheduling conflict, he was able to hop in there, and again, the rest is history. He, outside of Wesley Snipes, of course, he's perhaps the one guy who has played a superhero character the longest, outside of Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes, has the record set a few years past Jackman, but still, what, 20 plus years, 25 years? That's insane.
And Jackman definitely has the movies, but going back specifically to James McAvoy versus Joaquin Phoenix. While Joaquin Phoenix is a great character actor, and he had that great movie where he pranked all of us into thinking that he had a bad substance abuse problem, I'm not sure I could have believed him in having DID, dissociative identity disorder. The way that McAvoy pulled it off, like scenes where he puts on the makeup and he's a woman in one of the personalities, then he's a child in another one of the personalities. He just seemed to embody that role. Also, I'm not sure that the physicality of the beast would have been done well by Joaquin Phoenix, because I've never really seen Joaquin Phoenix do action like that. Like I can't think of an action movie that Joaquin Phoenix ever been in that he does the action. Like he was in Gladiator, obviously, but he was just sitting up there doing like this and doing like that. He was just doing that.
So I'm gonna respectfully disagree with you in this case. I don't think that he wouldn't have been capable of doing the role. I would say it's more along the lines of interacting with his colleagues on set. I have no way of knowing this, because I haven't personally. I'll put that out there. I haven't personally worked with Joaquin Phoenix, but it's been reported and recorded of how, despite how talented Joaquin is, allegedly, he's a very tricky person to be able to interact with on set and to have a rapport with on set. So, um, in contrast, of course, to James McAvoy, who I feel, I've heard is, delightful person to work with on set. And on top of that, I've knock on wood, I've had an opportunity to meet James McAvoy. Very nice person, very down to earth. And so, um, when I'm thinking of the film as a franchise, and the fact that later down the line we come to find out that it's connected to Unbreakable, and him having to interact with Bruce Willis, I don't know how.
And
Well,
that's what I'm
no.
saying.
Wait,
I'm
wait, wait,
not
wait.
sure that Joaquin Phoenix. They were in that movie.
They were
Whatchamacallit
in
together.
Signs.
They were in
They were in
Signs,
Signs.
weren't they?
Yeah. Well, yeah, they were in Signs. So I scratched that. I
No, no,
scratched.
no, no, no. He was in. No, he wasn't in Signs. Mel
No,
Gibson was
Mel
in
Gibson. That
Signs.
was Mel Gibson. That
And
was
I'm not
Mel.
saying that they don't have that thing, but I just think that they wouldn't have worked together. Like I just
I don't think that they would have
having
matched well if they
it
had
just
to
wouldn't
do
have
that.
worked as well. I don't think. I don't think it would have worked as well. I think. And honestly, at the time, James McAvoy was such a fresh face. he was such a fresh he was such a
I got you.
he was such a fresh face that him coming into that role also kept the surprise of it not being that it was a sequel to be a surprise. Like I know
Agreed.
people who went to see it when it came out, they didn't really talk about it. Like I didn't know that it was a sequel till I saw it like a year later when it was on like cable or something. I was like, wait a minute, this is
Well, no,
this is a
they did
sequel.
give a well for people that stuck around. They did give a little Easter egg, and they gave a little what do they call them? Because Marvel does them all the time. In
A
credits,
post credit script,
yeah,
yeah.
they gave a little stinger at the end of Split where they talked about the Unbreakable character taken down, and they showed it on the news where he was saying this alleged person, who's hooded, took down this other person. So um for those that stuck around, you were able to see that that they were trying to bridge these two films together. So, um, again, it just goes to show just that idea that things are supposed to happen for a reason, or things just happen for a reason in terms of our actors, anyone who's involved in the filmmaking process. Sometimes it's just fate, and it's just meant to be that are meant to work on this film, meant to direct this film, meant to write this film, meant to star in this film. It happens all the time where a lot of these folks who are the second choice, the third choice, end up being the right choice for that said character in that
I feel
said
like
film.
that too. I agree with that too. I feel like the second or third guy might be the better guy because you get so stuck on we need this person to make this movie, and I imagine Joaquin Phoenix made more sense for the money, but James McAvoy was a better character. Like he embodied the character so well to me. I agree totally with you on that. But it's just a revelation. I love hearing this
Even Keanu
shop
Reeves,
talk.
we
Yeah,
talk about that all
because
the time.
it was supposed to be Will Smith that was supposed to be in the Matrix, and I don't know if that movie would be as believable with Will Smith because Will Smith is such a huge personality that I'm not sure that you could believe that Will Smith didn't know that he it's too much stuff in there about the Matrix that wouldn't really. I mean, it worked with Will Smith. He's done other sci-fi movies, obviously, but I just don't. I'm not sure.
Well, I'll say this, and I would say at that time in which the Matrix was coming out, that
Hmm.
he's gotten better about it now as his career has progressed, and after he's done a lot of critically acclaimed work. But at that time, I feel like a lot of the roles that Will Smith was doing at that time was just the heightened version of Will Smith. Like, you have Independence Day. As much as I
That was
love
Will
Independence
Smith.
Day, it's
Yeah,
Will Smith. As much as I love,
Men in
what is
Black.
Men in
That was
Black,
Will Smith.
that's Will Smith.
Bad
Um,
Boys. He was Will
Bad
Smith in
Boys,
that
Will
movie.
Smith. Like,
Yeah.
so, and don't get me wrong, I'm not, I'm not slighting those movies. I'm not slighting those franchises. I love those films. I love those franchises. I love the characters that he plays in it. But I feel like with a movie like The Matrix, you have to have someone that gives a kind of every man quality. And I feel like Keanu Reeves gives a very everyman type of quality, and outside of the character that he ends up becoming. When we first meet the character, he doesn't seem particularly remarkable in any type of way.
And
And I
that's
don't
the
feel
difference. And I agree with you on that. It's the remarkability because whenever you see Will Smith on the screen, he's so charismatic. You're like,
yeah,
how could we not know that he was going to be the chosen one?
it
Everyone
was
would have known that he was going to be the chosen one because
right,
clearly Will Smith is the chosen one. Like when he shows up as
right,
Jay, he shows up as Jay. He's Jay in the opening credits of Men in Black. He doesn't need to put the suit on. He doesn't need to get any of the training or anything. He didn't need none of that stuff. He was Jay the whole time. They just needed to tell him, oh, it's aliens, Jay. He was like, oh, okay, well, we going with the aliens. Not like with the Matrix. Like Keanu had to learn about it. He had to be trained. Like it's a completely different kind of thing that Will Smith, like you're saying, in none of his movies is he ever not an expert and super charismatic and just
I mean, don't
he's
get me
never
wrong. Later in his
lost.
career, he's gotten way better about that. Where I feel like it's not, Will Smith being a heightened version of Will Smith.
Yeah.
So, he's a far better actor now than when he was then, where he was relying a lot on his charisma because he had loads of it. So, and he
Hmm.
still has loads of it. But now that he's later in his career and he's done a lot of other diverse parts, if we're talking about like Ali or 7 Pounds or a lot
Hmm.
of these the Pursuit of Happiness, a lot of these characters in which he has to stretch himself a lot more in actually doing a character that is not a heightened version of his own persona. um I just feel like that movie wouldn't have worked, and we may not have even gotten any additional films after that because it may not have worked. Um, with him on it. And it's, again, not a slight against him. Sometimes folks are a better fit for a role than other people, and you see it all the time too. Even when you're watching a film, and you're like, that person was miscast. They shouldn't have been that character. Good
Hmm.
point of that is Ryan Reynolds is awesome, but he shouldn't have been
He should
Green.
have never been the Green Lantern. I always said he should have been the Flash. I feel like if they'd
Yeah,
have made him the
agreed,
Flash, he's
agreed,
a much better Flash than he is a Green
agreed.
Lantern.
Absolutely. Well, or Booster Gold.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like Ryan Reynolds. That's why he's so good as Deadpool. He kind of breaks the fourth wall in all of his movies and stuff. So to have someone as serious as a Hal Jordan, like he wasn't even Kyle Renner or like one of the later Green Lanterns. He was like the Silver Age Green Lantern that is the Green Lantern. That's the super serious one. Making someone like Ryan Reynolds to be the super serious character felt weird, and it just didn't land. So casting is so important, and this is why we have casting directors because somebody said, "I don't know about this Joaquin Phoenix with this character. I'm not sure that it will work." And they said, "Well, what about this British kid that we know?"
Well, to his credit, the way it's explained is Joaquin is backed out himself, so he did it of his own accord.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we would have had him in there.
that would
So
have been so
again,
weird.
things happen
It,
for a reason, and it's meant.
Bizarro World, Movers and Shakers Unlimited is talking about how James McAvoy was almost the beast, and they're like, I can't believe that we could imagine that way, but in this universe, he was the one.
He was. All right. So switching gears into the other part of our story, of course, I had mentioned it before with Ewan McGregor receiving his star in the Walk of Fame. He was joined by colleagues, especially his Star Wars co-stars, brain farting on Hayden Christensen. Joined him at the Walk of Fame to honor him, as well as his family and friends. It's crazy to believe, and I know we've done a lot of segments of this Spillman of some actors who have we're learning are just now getting their stars on the Walk of Fame. You would think with the filmography as lengthy as McGregor's is, and again, I feel like he's another underrated actor, just like James McAvoy, where he's able to do a lot of various roles very well, and disappear in a lot of roles that he hasn't already gotten his star in the Walk of Fame. But what are your thoughts on him finally receiving one?
He's one of the, honestly, I think in our generation, he's probably the best British actor that we've had in our generation. Um, I think that we liked him in the Star Wars franchise. I liked him in some of his breakout roles, including Train Spotting. That's a classic. I watch that
Yeah, of
anytime it
course,
comes on the TV.
of course, yeah, yeah.
Um, he's got lots of other things. I just really enjoy his charm. I really enjoy his charm. So I just hold on, guys.
Mm-hmm. I'll give Spinman second there. But yeah, like as I said, it's crazy to believe that McGregor hasn't received his star until Of course, earning it this past week. But again, very versatile actor. And I know Spillman, you were mentioning Train Spotting.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's my favorite movie by him. Like even though he's Obi-Wan, he was great as Obi-Wan. I love Train Spotting. It's one of the great movies that what's your boy? I think he's got guy what's the guy name? The guy from England that does all the British movies.
that narrows it down. Um,
No, he was married to Madonna for a little while.
Guy Ritchie,
Guy
director.
Ritchie. Yeah. Guy Ritchie. I believe he did Train Spotting. I may be wrong, and I might be mixing him up with another British director, but I'm pretty sure he did that. But Ewan McGregor, great actor, done a lot of things. Happy to see him get his star on the Walk of Fame. I think like we said, Obi-Wan is one of his great characters. He does a lot of
I
sly
mean,
characters, and I
he's
like
been in
that.
a ton of stuff, but I
Yeah.
can go down the line. I can go down, Doctor Sleep, uh,
Doctor Sleep, crazy.
terrific film. Who'd have thought that you could do a sequel of what is it?
The Shining.
The Shining so many years later and still have a terrific sequel. Because I've talked about it on how like I feel like there's a cutoff point, but that film actually goes past that cutoff point, and yet the movie is still in the rare conversation of being a good sequel. I could talk about Haywire, underrated, action film, and starring actually
Oh,
another.
we forgot Moulin Rouge.
Oh yeah, of course, Moulin Rouge.
Gotta give a big up to the Moulin Rouge for all my musical fans. I know that we don't talk much about musicals on this podcast, ladies and gentlemen. But your boy likes a good musical, and Moulin Rouge is a classic. The way that they were singing and chasing that green fairy—that's what I'm talking about. You can't go wrong with Ewan McGregor. He's a great actor.
For sure, for sure. So again, congratulations to Ewan McGregor receiving his star on the Walk of Fame. Um, Now switching gears a moment, we did have an unfortunate passing that did
Oh,
happen this past week, and of course that's none other than the late great James Earl Jones. And man, like just to go over the extensive, career of Mr. Jones. He passed this past Monday. Uh, as I said, legendary, prolific, actor that passed away in his home at the age of 93. Has a career that spans more than 60 years with more than 80 credits, film credits to his name, which of course doesn't even include his credits on stage. Just going down the list of accolades: three-time NAACP, two-time Tony Award, two-time Primetime Emmy Award, a Grammy Award, Golden Globe Award, and Oscar Award winning artist, and a Kennedy Center honoree. Has done a slew of roles that he's become synonymous with. And I feel like, that list may be different for you based on, the era and of his career in which you grew up. I mean, I can go down some of them, whether it's the villainous Thusla Doom from Conan the Barbarian,
hmm
whether it's, of course,
King Joffrey Joe Fur.
King Joffrey Joe Fur from Coming America film franchise, the villainous Darth Vader, of course, from Star Wars, King Mufasa from Lion King. Man, like the list goes on and on. That's just a handful of some of those roles that he has taken on that many of us love and enjoy that are iconic. But maybe there's some that you yourself, Spillman, come to mind for you, in talking about James Earl Jones that I have not listed here that you enjoy that's a part of his filmography? And if so, what
All
are
right, we're forgetting the two of the greatest baseball movies of all time. He was
they?
in
Okay.
the
And I'll
stand
give
the
this
stand.
film a second real quick.
Yeah, hold on,
Well, if
guys,
he
hold
wants
on.
to, hey, if he wants to come on and make a cameo, come on, make a cameo, sir. I'm gonna give Spillman a moment there, but
Sorry,
yeah,
ladies and gentlemen.
no, you're
Sorry,
fine.
ladies and gentlemen. But
You're fine.
two of the greatest baseball movies ever made. The Sandlot. He was
Of course, yes,
low key the villain of the Sandlot. You could say he's
yes,
the villain of the
yes,
Sandlot.
yes,
And
yes.
then Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. Um,
Yes.
I use that as a mantra in my life for everything. Like you got to do the thing. If you're going to do the thing, and you might get something out of it. If you don't do the thing, then they're not going to come. So great movies he's been in. Obviously, he was in a little movie called Meteor Man.
Oh yeah, be remiss. I'd be remiss, which
Yeah,
takes place in
we
DC.
gotta we
Black
gotta,
spirit, black
and
superhero.
he was dressed real
Blade.
crazy in that movie too. He was dressed crazy in
He
Meteor
was.
Man. It
I
was
ain't
like,
gonna lie.
why y'all putting him in their clothes? Why?
I ain't gonna lie. He
It's
dressed
like
like
if you
wild
saw
as
your
hell.
grandmother in Chrome Heart today. Why did they dress him up in that get up? Um, that was hilarious. So James Earl Jones is one of the greatest. Obviously, the voice of Sprint for many years. A great. He was the voice, the narrator voice before Morgan Freeman really got big on his narration game.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I just you just can't. There's so many things like a great stage actor too, and one of the first EGOTs. We really missed that he was one of the first EGOTs, if not the first EGOT. He had plenty of things that he did on stage and in spoken word albums and things like that that you just can't he's been such a big part of our lives. Like it's hard to say which of his movies you like the best because he's done so many
That's
things.
why I feel it's so connected to when you were growing up. As I said, 60+ year career. There are a lot of films that are in there, and like I said, I didn't mention all of them. I know there are many more that happen in each of those decades, but it may just be by virtue of what age you were at that time in which he was doing that role. Like, I mean, Conan is older than me, but
Yeah.
it used to come on TV all the time. So I recognized him as an actor, and it was like, God, who is this villain? This villain is like really like he's cool, but he's like really like scary. Because I'll never forget, of him like what they had with that character, him like transforming into like snakes and stuff. That was like really
Oh
wild.
yeah. Super
So,
crazy.
um, so yeah, like I mean, you have that. You have, of course, a lot of the films that are a part of my upbringing. I know you mentioned Sandlot, but I mean, gosh, Lion King, Star Wars. A lot of these, films, were a part of my, childhood and my upbringing. So to, to have that versatility where, as I said, he had a career that spanned the stage, TV, and film, um not just in front of the camera but with his voice, because he had an incredible voice. A lot of people would kill to have a voice like that, where you have a voice like that that's instantly recognizable. There are only a handful of people that I can think of that have those types of voices where you recognize them immediately. If I'm going down the line, Keith David has a
Mm-hmm.
awesome voice. Who else that I'm thinking of that are voice actors. But like I said, Keith David, you have James Earl Jones. I'm trying to think of some other
Maybe
we mentioned
John
Morgan
H.
Freeman.
Benjamin or somebody like that. Morgan
Yeah, I mean
Freeman.
we mentioned Morgan Freeman, but I mean you just have those actors that just have that voice that it doesn't matter what they're doing. It's something that immediately uh presents authority or presents a gravitas, if you will, whenever you
I
hear
was
it.
going to say that specifically about James Earl Jones, that his voice lent credibility to things. Like even episodes of The Simpsons that he did, like they had him doing the episode of Simpson with um the Raven poem. Like they did
Oh, yeah.
he just read the poem, but man, like it wouldn't have seemed so surreal and so true without his voice acting talent. So just to me, we would be remiss if we didn't do this segment about one of the goats. James Earl Jones, just classic. To make it to where he did from where he came from, to be from small town Mississippi and to make it in life is just crazy. Especially being born in the 30s. Can you imagine like what his life, what the changes his life saw, and also the stratifications of culture that he went through on the way up? Because to go from Mississippi to the top of Hollywood, that's a hard road to hoe.
And then on top of that too, to have the disadvantages that, as you said, because if I remember correctly, like he spoke with a lisp, or I should say he
A
had a
stutter.
stuttering, problem, a stuttering problem. So the fact that you were able to overcome not only the limitations that you yourself have, but also, just as you said, to overcome the limitation of the circumstances that you're in based on the time that you're living, really says something. And to be able to continue to, which not a lot of entertainers can do, whether you are an actor or singer or in any field of entertainment, to be able to have a career that spans generations, that whether it's your grandparent, whether it's your parent, whether it's kids, whether it's your kids, that people know who you are and they know what are familiar with your work. So that really says a lot of, like you said, that having that talent that spans and is versatile, that spans over different mediums and different different generations. It's really incredible. But again, rest in peace to James Earl Jones. Was 93, passed away in his home this past week
Here's a
on Monday.
controversial thing that we could talk about specifically with
What's
him. I
that?
think he might be one of the first people that did this. He lent his voice to Disney to make Darth Vader in perpetuity. Is that one of the
Mm.
dumbest things you've ever heard of? Technically, like, not truly saying it's dumb, but like perpetuity to give a corporation like Disney all of your voice talent for the rest of history seems like it's a bad deal. I don't know how that will
Yeah,
shake out ultimately.
yeah. I mean, I would say this. I wouldn't necessarily make that deal, because you want to have something that provides legacy to those that come after you, and it's something that can continue to be negotiated with, among your those that have hopefully your family members have control over your what is it, your estate. And if they do,
Hmm.
that they're able to continue to benefit from your prior work. And I mean, I understand one side of it, where you're just getting paid a huge lump sum to have it used in perpetuity. There is that component to it, but at the same time too, I feel like it's such a priceless thing to be able to sell, that it should be up to the members of your estate to be able to make that decision afterwards, versus it becoming something that gets used far beyond, I feel, what someone may pay for it.
Right.
So um but again, like I said, rest in peace to James Earl Jones. I want to get into our main story. And you guys probably saw it in the title. This is regarding American Airlines doing free Wi-Fi. So let me put this up for you guys. And as you know, whenever we do our main title or our main story, we always leave it as our background. But this past Thursday, American Airlines revealed that it would be equipping its planes with free in-flight Wi-Fi using SpaceX's Starlink internet service next year. Just to give you a couple of takeaways, United will start testing SpaceX's Starlink service in early 2025 before expanding it to more flights later in the year. The service will be free for all passengers aboard the airline's more than 1,000 planes, and allow for multiple devices to be connected at once. And this is according to United. Um, and then lastly, the FAA, or the Federal Aviation Administration, will have to approve SpaceX's Starlink equipment before it can be equipped on United planes. And this is according to the Wall Street Journal. So thank you. Shout out to Wall Street Journal. But Spillman, you hear all of this. I'm someone people know, I travel a lot, whether it's, getting to a lot of these cons and different shows, especially when, I'm doing coverage for different shows. Um, what are your thoughts on American Airlines getting free Wi-Fi?
I'm actually surprised that the first word in this headline is on here because Wi-Fi has been a thing that they have offered on their planes for many, many decades at this point now. But to me, the news is that they're doing it for free. I can't think of anything that the airlines have done in the last 20 years that they said, "Oh, we're going to be offering this service at a lower cost for you." I remember, we're of a certain age, ladies and gentlemen. I don't like to talk about this, but I remember pre 9/11. I remember, like, things weren't as expensive on the planes. They didn't check as much stuff. They didn't charge you for certain things. Like I just think it's very interesting that they're doing this.
There are certain things that you could take on that you can't take on now.
For
I
sure.
remember.
You used to
Yeah.
be able to drink water on the plane. You bring water. They said, no, you'll be thirsty. They said, we don't care how far you're going, you'll be thirsty. So to me, that's just very interesting. I wonder what really they're going to get out of this because there must be some kind of licensing fee or something.
See,
Because
that's what the cynical me that's why I don't really believe the idea of free. The cynical version of me is looking at it like this, like, okay, you're utilizing, what is it, SpaceX's service or what have you, link or internet service. A lot of times when things are free, it makes me immediately think of things such as cookies, the internet cookies, and being able to collect information and being able to, have access to people's, information, and them not saying it because you could kind of go, you could kind of, have something hidden between the lines or things of that nature. So yeah, it's free, but at what cost is it free that they're not telling you that it is free? So that's my concern when I hear something like this, where, yeah, while it is frustrating that you do have to pay for, oftentimes when you get on the plane, you get on to the plane, and some of the things are free, right? Like, what is it, some of the messaging, it may be free, or watching, TV shows or the films that they have available for you may be free. But outside of that, you know, everything else you have to pay a nominal fee for. While it can be irritating, and while it may seem cool on the surface, on paper, that it's free, yeah, I'm a little skeptical that, there's something else at play here that's not really being mentioned as to why it's free. Because by making it free, it doesn't hurt as much or sting as much that, information may be getting collected. I don't know what your thoughts on it is. Oh, I don't think I can. Oh, my bad. Hold on. Thought you were able to unmute it. My bad, man.
you see that, ladies and gentlemen, Brandon is controlling me like Geppetto, baby. But anyway,
Ah,
it's just surprising. There must be something. Maybe Elon is about to buy American Airlines or something. Maybe that's it. That's the only thing I could think of. That's the only thing I could think of. Because the business model for airlines is now the airlines are just they're just banks that own a airline on the side. Like, you buy the things. So maybe Starlink, maybe they're trying to make Starlink more mainstream. And they're trying to use Starlink rather than ground based uh, cellular networks or what have you. So maybe this is how they get in. Generally, they do things like this. Like I think when they pilot a lot of the new things with credit cards and how credit card functionality updates, usually the first place you see it is in like an airline or something like that.
Yeah, but I would say this too, as much and it's we mentioned it at the top, right, of how security is way tighter when it comes to that process of getting on your flight. It, if we're going to be very tight about security when it comes to that, I feel like you have to be tight with the internet too, where like having free internet can make things very susceptible by making it free. Um, you know, Tech savvy people, I feel like it can make folks very susceptible for those that are very, tech savvy people, unfortunately. And I hate to play devil's advocate here
Again,
of
yeah, the
how things
people
can
with
go
money be on
sideways.
planes.
But I'm
Yeah,
saying of how things can go sideways. Things can go sideways when you're talking about free Wi-Fi that is not, protected by passwords or encrypted. So
yeah. We'll see. I just wonder
a
about this
little
kind of stuff
skeptical.
because they're very nefarious. These airline companies they charge you for many silly things that it seems like would be included in the price of a ticket. And Wi-Fi seems like it'll be included. It used to seem like it should be because you got me in this aluminum tube 35,000 feet off the ground. The least you could do is let me use my phone.
That's the thing, though. I would be okay paying a nominal fee if I know that, it is specifically my line and it's not a line that I'm sharing, with everyone on the flight. So,
For sure.
um, that's just me. But also I guess the other part of that, just as you said, things are just changing, constantly evolving. I know with like Southwest, I love flying Southwest. I'm not affiliated with Southwest. They don't sponsor anything for me, but I do love Southwest, and that you have their policy when it comes to your carry-on and your personal item, and also uh what they have with the seating situation of first come first serve. I don't know if you've had a chance to do Southwest and experience that, but apparently they're changing that process, which I'm not looking forward to, because I do like that idea, because a lot of times people don't want to sit in the middle seat, and so even when you are like seating wise, not the preferential groups. There have been occasions where that's happened when I've gotten on a Southwest flight. Still been able to sit in the front because nobody wants to sit. Everybody either wants to sit in the aisle seat or they want to sit in a window seat. So you have a lot of like middle seats that are available, which I don't mind, because that means that if I can sit towards the front and be in the middle seat, I can deuce out and be out and not have to wait. So
See, I don't have that luxury,
uh,
Brandon. I need to get exit row seating whenever I'm on an aeroplane, and usually the desk agent will upgrade me, so I don't even have to worry about that assigned seat and stuff. They'd be like, "No, big fella, you too big for these seats. We'll get you a good seat." And I'll be like, "Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. You don't know how hard it
fair
is
enough.
being me.
Fair enough.
It's so hard out here in these streets, and they just upgrade me without me asking for anything or
So
paying any
so hard,
monies."
so hard up here in these skies.
It's
So
it's
hard.
it's very hard. Planes
These
be trying
skies.
to fly
So
into me. I'm
hard.
like, get out of
So
here,
hard.
plane! Don't fly into my head. So yeah, I just it's very interesting. I wonder what this is for. Also, another thing that's pretty impressive that they have the technology that can track a plane through the air and provide Wi-Fi to multiple different to random devices and stuff. That seems kind of strange. It's like, what you doing with that, Alon? You trying to pilot some drone stuff or something? What's the point
Well,
of this?
like I said, collecting consumer data
Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
selling the consumer data, but you're not saying that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sting as much because you're telling people that, oh, the Wi-Fi is free, all
You
the
could
while
search
you're
TikTok
collecting
all
that
you
data.
want to. That's right.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a little skeptical in that. So I'm
Hmm.
curious to learn more if they do share more about it. But yeah. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think about? I know we talked about a couple of things today about what we said with Split. Are people meant to play the roles? Do you agree? People are meant to play the roles that they get. That that it's just fate. What do you guys think of the upcoming Dexter series of what was shown of it? What are your thoughts on Ewan McGregor finally getting his star on the Walk of Fame? James Earl Jones passing away, and of course what we just mentioned now of getting free Wi-Fi apparently on American Airlines come next year in 2025, which will be here before you know it, guys. Because I don't want to stress anyone out. We are a month out
Halloween.
in a week from what is it Halloween
Yeah.
already,
Yeah.
and I remember when this year started. So here we are. But be that as it may, thank you guys so much for watching this week's show of This Week in Pop Culture. I will punt it over to Spill, as always. Go ahead, Spill.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are on the eve of possibly the only win that the Washington Commanders will get this year as we play the Giants after the Giants really literally threw up all over themselves. So let us all bow our heads and pray to the football gods that the Commanders actually win a game. But, I don't have my hopes up too high because that's a terrible franchise. But you can look me up and we can talk about stuff like this right here at Truly Spill on Instagram. So, you know, love you guys. Send the love. Make sure you like and share the stream. Please tell everybody you know about it because we need the likes.
All right, cool beans. So again, I want to thank Spills for co-hosting once again this week. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, also co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me at Brandon Troy ENT on X, on Twitter, whatever the kids call it these days, or on Instagram at Brandon Troy _ENT. Thank you guys so much for watching. Excuse me. Oh, here we go. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there. And of course, guys, see you soon. Peace.
Peace. You got to get the Apple, Brandon, so you can get all these cool emojis that I get. That's right, ladies and gentlemen.